So, how I built another AI SaaS startup in 18 days. Outcome, as I said, it's really about giving you, I think there are many people that are very good at talking about how to find ideas and startups, or sort of sharing how to build a startup, but not giving that really sort of opening up, like what's the operating system behind coming up with and actually going off and building and validating a startup idea. So, goal here is just to share exactly my process, and then hopefully you are inspired and motivated to go and put this into practice yourself. So what am I going to cover? Really this 4-week cycle that, I'm on the second of 12 products now. I've started to refine, get pretty happy with the process, right? I've built many companies before, but this is the first time I'm doing it with SaaS in 2024. We have changes with AI. We have no code tools and capabilities that were not there, let's say 3, 4, 5 years ago. So this is sort of process I'm getting towards, feeling really happy with as we're halfway through 2024. Before we jump into that and the sort of how I built IdeaForge, that whole process, I think it's really important to share my story, just to understand, like, why am I building 12 startups in 12 months? So, bit of background. I started my first business in it must have been 2014 now, right? So sort of VC-backed startup called Backtracker, where you could plot your journey, connect with other people, sort of share your suggestions and ideas, specifically for backpackers. Made every single mistake possible. Decisions driven by ego, no strategy, no discovery, no idea about how we were ever going to make money. And ultimately that sort of crashed and burned, not in a great way, over 2 years, but learned a huge amount along that journey. Right? It's sort of where I fell in love with product and business, and really wanted to understand what makes products succeed and fail, and ultimately try and build a successful product the next time that I tried it. After that, really 6 different strings, let's say, different stages in my career. I freelanced for a bit, got a real job for a while to try and sort of be normal. Started a blog, a very slightly profitable journaling app, did consulting, started working on an HR tool. Ultimately, all these things failed. Right? They weren't sort of exactly what I wanted to do. They didn't tick all the boxes for me. Nothing's ever perfect, but I had parameters about what success meant. Fast forward to 2020, and I remember I've been thinking about going back into like building a startup again, right? So moving away from consulting, freelancing, and just wrote down in my journal, true story. This quote. Sorry, my dog sounds like he's coughing in the background. Quote: "Nobody is coming for you. If you don't do it, it won't happen." I've been waiting for 3, 4, 5 years to start another business again, really on my own terms, but had always found excuses, right? Always said, well, I don't do sales, I need a salesperson, or I need a co-founder, or I just need to wait for the perfect idea to magically appear. And only when I sort of sat down and took full responsibility did I start to see real progress. It's starting to, the process that I'm going to be sharing today, starting to really refine that and see results, was 2020. 4 months after that, I'd built and validated ProdMBA. That business, by 2022, was bringing in about 280K profit per year. I was getting my work day way down to 4 or 5 hours. Really purposeful, big impact in terms of people's careers. Bootstrapped, so no funding. Solo founded, so founded by myself with no other team. And was profitable from month one. So really focused on that. I'm still running that company, by the way, at the moment. Now, coming into 2024, I said, I want to get back into building. I want to build digital. This is what really excites me. But I always remember this stat. This is a stat that I teach students, people I coach, clients. Like 90% of startups fail. You can look at various studies on this, and it tends to come to around this number. It can be 80% in some, 90, 95% in others, but it's very high is the point. 1 in 10 might work out. So I said, okay, well, if I'm going to build a digital startup and on average 9 or 10 fail, And maybe I have better odds because I've got more experience. I'm not going venture capital route, so I'm not trying to just absolutely create this rocket ship that's either going to go to the moon or crash and burn. Even if that's the case, let's say generously, 3 out of 10 might succeed. Well, if I just build 12 startups in 12 months, then it gives me a good chance of succeeding. And that's the journey I've been on just over 2 months ago, in fact. So the first one I launched was Smart Updates, made a little bit of revenue. So got 2 sales there. I actually had a very interesting conversation about potentially doing an enterprise play. So speaking to a company about whether I just came and did a custom version for them, but didn't follow up there. Didn't see any retention. So didn't see that one work out. Said, okay, that's a failure. Let's pivot to the next idea. Second idea Forge, what I will be talking about today. Launch was this morning, 8 a.m. So it's still ongoing. Let's see at the end where we're at so far with this product, sort of my thoughts moving forward. The goal of this whole project, just to be crystal clear, like when I say success, right, a startup succeeds, is not grand ambitions in my case, right? As a solopreneur, that really is about hitting my monthly minimum salary. Right? What's the bare I could pay myself if I did this full time? At the moment, it's about 4K. It's not that high, and it's probably not that high in your case when you really sit down and do the numbers. Sure, great to earn more than that, but that's really the minimum. So the goal for me with this project is, expectation is that 9 out of 12 are just going to completely flop, right? 0 revenue or like really minimal. 3 out of 12 might generate $500, let's say. So a bit of potential. And then the goal is to build one that really starts to see significantly better success than the others. Can it hit 4K a month, for example? Maybe not immediately, but at least within, let's say 3 months of launch there. So that's the high level goal. So let's talk about the process itself. Week 1. And by the way, there will be time for Q&A. There is time for Q&A after this. So just write notes, add questions now if you want on the comments, but I'll address most of them at the end. So week 1 essentially is what I've been doing is discovery week. In fact, let me visualize the process before we jump in. So essentially week 1, I focus on discovery, right? That is like, what's the idea going to be? Week 2, feasibility. So essentially, like, what can I actually deliver? Can I deliver the value that I want to? Third is MVP. So a bit of overlap here because, when I'm, let's say, checking out whether I can build a certain feature, that's ultimately probably part of whatever the MVP is, or viable product. And then week 4, launch. Right? So a whole week preparation, getting it out there, getting the word out, and seeing what people are doing with it. New thing I've been doing, thank you to Simon Conway, who's on the call, continuous discovery. This is something I've always wanted to do. Well, I usually do, but because my timeline is so short, it's very hard to try to find people to interview, organize the calls, do the calls, review the notes. So Simon has very kindly volunteered to do that. He's doing a really good job this week of usability testing. So if anybody does want to test out Idea Forge, then reach out to myself or Simon and we can get a call booked in there. It's sort of high level process. So what is week 1 about? As I said, it's about saying like, what the hell am I going to build? Because there are literally infinite things, infinite ideas, things to build. And I approach this very methodically because, as I said, if we're expecting 9 out of 10 startups to fail, then we can't just like wait for one perfect idea to come or just focus on one idea and just hope it all works out. That's not how this works. And if you look at any of the top serial entrepreneurs, in my own experience as well, there are methodical ways to generate ideas. I've coached 300 people through Product MBA on this exact topic. Right? Everyone goes, oh my God, how the hell am I going to come up with 10 ideas or 20 ideas? It's really easy when you follow, when you actually apply specific ideation tactics. I'm going to go through this in detail in a second, but just high level. Okay, so what's my approach here? Essentially, I'll go and apply a tactic and say one tactic would be, for example, look through my calendar from the last month and see what problems or frustrations came up. Tactic, right? So I'll go and do that activity and see what ideas that I can get there. I'll then add these to a Google Sheet. Again, I'll show you these in a second. I'll link to everything after as well, where I'm basically assessing ideas. I'm going, great, I've got this big old list of ideas. Are they good or not? Do they seem to have potential or not? So let's say I've got 20 ideas there. I'm then going to refine that. It's really a funnel, in fact, this. Where I'm going to do deep assessment on 3 ideas. 3 ideas that I go, you know what, I think there's something here. There's some real potential. Let's see what we've got. And then at the end, select a winning idea to pursue. Now, again, because I'm doing 12 and because ideas are likely to fail, it's not like these are on the scrap heap. Right? So I'm going to have a really nice bank of, I'm already building this huge bank of ideas that have been assessed and are sort of ready to pick up and put into practice. Now, in this case, I didn't feel like I had any good ideas. I had 3 that I was like, yeah, there's high potential, did some discovery calls, did a bit more research, and just felt there's nothing really there. So actually applied a slightly different approach in this case. So let me show you exactly what I did here. In fact, let's final 2 slides. So essentially what I did, and I'll talk you through the whole process in a sec visually, it just went back to one of my specific tactics of solving my own problem and have used that as an anchor to inform what I'm building this time, right? Which is essentially Idea Forge, solving the problem of how to find, assess, and organize startup ideas. Basically exactly what I'm talking about doing in week 1, the discovery week, right? So let's have a look at how I do this exactly. So in terms of ideation tactics, I talk about this on the blog. So go to prodmba.substack.com and there's a post outlining all of these. But just as an example, right, I might look through, as I said, let's look at another specific tactic, in fact. So, sorry, let me load up the right file. Yeah, this is it. Okay, great. So essentially, I use Bear Notes to organize my process. Yeah, there's sort of 2 areas that I'm looking at. The first is trends. So many great entrepreneurs like Greg Eisenberg, great person to follow, Noah Kagan as well, Nicola Beer. I'm just gathering a load of different ideas from them and applying them. So one thing that I've actually always done, just posting on LinkedIn, for example, or asking friends and family, hey, do you have any acute problems? So list 2 to 3 acute problems you've had over the last month, for example, just to generate some problem ideas. I find this works really, really effectively. It's something all Prod MBA students do. Another example, I've looked specifically at things like gummy search. Let me load this up. Where essentially I'll go on and essentially this is a way to browse Reddit trends specifically and see what kind of problems and challenges are coming up there. You can also just go on to something like Reddit and say, right, I'm going to time box half an hour, go into Reddit and just find a subthread like whatever, teens or World of Warcraft, and just go through and see what kind of conversations and challenges and pain points are coming up there. And then just add them to your list. Right, so I'll then come over to, go back to that visual, apply the ideation tactic, and I'll do like 3 or 4 of these, by the way, come up with ideas and just add them here. So I say, okay, example. Okay, I might look on product management forums and people are going, I really struggle with job interviews, right? I don't sell myself well. I go, okay, we're interesting. Well, let's just, what if we did a job interview prep coach? Just add that onto the Google Sheet. And then what I do is start filling out these other categories and assessments to get a sense of what this could look like as a business. So let's say we've got this job interview prep coach. I want to look at 9 specific factors. Like, okay, is the problem acute? Because if it's not, then it's really hard to get for people to be motivated enough to actually use it, pay for it. Do I see potential in the market? For example, like revenue potential. Do people pay for these kind of products in this target market? Do I see high potential, low, or medium? And, not doing weighted scores, right? But just getting a sense like visually of where I see good ideas and bad ideas. These are all relatively good because I've been doing this process for years, but don't expect, I try to mark myself quite harshly in terms of ideas. But you start to get a sense of where there's sort of potential or not. And you'll notice lots of them, right? That's 30 ideas that I have here. Aim for 20 at a minimum. So I've got a load of ideas that I'm dragging up from all these different tactics and then assessing them and then say, okay, where do I see sort of high potential? And I'll just move them to the top and say, look, here are the ideas that I see real potential in. Let's now take these forward and stress test them a little bit more. To do that, I'll go into, there's a Miro board that I use this with Product MBA students, where essentially I will do four or five different things. So let's say one of the ideas was looking at a product coach co-pilot. So for independent product coaches, some way of helping them like organize their coachees, things like, invoicing, calendar, progress management, communication, all this kind of stuff. So maybe that there's something there, there's a business. Thrash out what that really looks like in terms of depth of problem, types of competitors, target market, just to really sort of refine the high level concept. Secondly, fitting in a lean canvas. So getting a real sense of what this could actually look like as a business. For example, like what are the revenue streams? How do I think I could differentiate from competition? Third, I won't zoom on this because it's these are notes from discovery calls from individuals. Essentially speaking to people from this niche and getting a sense of, okay, what are the problems? What are the main challenges? What kind of ideas can I come up with during those calls about how to solve it? It's a nice way of aggregating discovery calls. And then finally, Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas. So really thrashing out what are the competitors and existing alternatives good at, and where could I see big, massive potential for my own idea. So as I said, I did this with three. You see these three ideas here, these three columns, and said, from discovery calls and really like, building out the idea into what a business could look like. I said, I'm not confident in these three ideas. So I went back to the drawing board and then, as I said, tried to do what I call dogfooding. What would you feed yourself, i.e. solving your own problem? I just said, look, why don't I just do a startup idea generator, build something I'd actually use myself, and then again, went through that process. Here, I'll happily share this board after, by the way. So, as I said, applying tactics to come up with ideas, assessing, let's say 20, 30, cutting that down to 3, seeing what that could look like as businesses, and then from those 3, trying to pick a winning idea. In this case, I basically added a 4th. I went back and said, let's really dive into my own problems and found an idea that I felt was high potential. Secondly, second week, I'll then go into feasibility week. So I'm coming into this with a sense of, okay, I know what the problem is. I've got a high level idea of the solution. What, if I think of what this could look like as a solution, real back of the paper, wireframes, what are the big, what could I actually deliver? So sort of exploring the more complex feature ideas. And here I'm looking at really trying to avoid getting stuck. Right? So I'm not going to be custom coding. I'm using Bubble. I talk about that more, in fact, in last month's webinar that is on YouTube. So if you want to really the details of Bubble and how I use it and how I approach building things, then you'll get all of that in that video. All I want to mention here is avoid as many unknowns as possible, because I do not have the time to say, let's push back launch for 3 months. So I'm looking at sort of solutions that structurally exist. So for example, let's say we want to go, okay, great. Well, there's an Airbnb template I can use in Bubble. What if I did Airbnb for dog owners, for example? Second, I'll try to focus on like one core area of value rather than trying to do everything. So, did this really well with Product MBA, just focus on being extremely hands-on when it comes to a bootcamp, not getting like high credibility instructors from Google, Amazon, etc. that our competitors did. And third thing I'm always looking for is how to challenge the current thing, sort of create what we call a new category. Loom is a really good example of this. They said, they don't say it's about videos, but it's about email and text being an old way of communication. What if we could communicate with video recordings? It's a whole new category of communication. Did really, really well and saw a huge lift off over the last 3-4 years. So here's a screenshot from my my notes when it comes to feasibility sprint. So essentially, it's pretty straightforward. I'm starting the week by saying, okay, I want to just list out all of the potential black hole features. Like, what are the things I could get really stuck on? And also to basically build out a minimal version of each of these potentially complex features just to show that, yeah, I know how to do this. I know how to build this, get the logic together, and then refine it when it comes to the real thing. And I'll literally just go through this list and get as many things done in a week as possible. You'll see a couple of things in bold. That's essentially where I've explored a feature and said, I look into it and go, I don't need it. It's overkill. It's too much. So put a cross next to it. We're not going to do it. Or another example, the fourth line, assessment, create and display a graph. I started this, got pretty close to finishing, but I was like, I feel like I'm going to be really stuck on this for a few days. So just paused it, and it's not part of the MVP. Other things I'll build out, just tick, great. If I want to, I can now use that feature in the real thing. So that's it with feasibility week. It's just really delve into, can I actually deliver? Week 3 MVP, so building a launch-ready app. Right, so now that I've cleared all of the big hurdles, right, the big sort of scary potential black holes, this week is actually relatively smooth, right? So this was last week in this case. What am I doing? I'm defining the specific like high level goals or jobs to be done, whatever you want to use. Like what does the user want to achieve with this product? Example would be to write and store startup ideas. Great, okay, that's a job to be done. Below that, then I'll go, okay, what are the features that I need to deliver so that they can actually achieve that goal? And just list the features. And then finally, just go and freaking build the thing. All week, zero distractions. Simon knows this because I'm hard to contact during this week. Just building in Bubble, and that is it. I'm off email, I'm off LinkedIn. I'm really doing nothing other than building in Bubble or not working, right? Doing sports and family stuff, right? But extremely focused because you can move so quickly when you have that focus. So here's the example, actually the real thing. Example from Ideaforge. I have the job to be done. Right, a user wants to add an existing idea, and then basically I've got just list of features below that. I don't need to put this in a project management tool because I'm working on it by myself, but it's the same concept, right? We have things to do and some sort of status there. Right, so I'll map that all out, and then I'll basically at the beginning of the week say, what do I think is realistic to get done on any given day? And just really try and crack on with it. I'll also leave a bit of time for nice to haves. I did in fact get one of them done. And also for bug fixes as well across the end of the MVP week, as well as this week as I go into launch. Just a note, whilst we're halfway through this, again, it would be a massive help if you could vote for Ideaforge on Product Hunt. I will now share the link so that you can do that. And also Ideaforge itself, let me load this up. Let me share this link to Product Hunt, and let me share a link to Ideaforge itself. Sorry, should have loaded that up before. Thea asking, where can I get access to the slides? I think Simon meant we can see the slide. Good, sorry, back to the presentation. Right, so literally just go through and don't get distracted and just commit to building during week 3. Week 4 launch. This is something that I'm refining, right? This is a new playbook and I'm seeing how it works. First question to ask, where does the niche hang out, right? It doesn't freaking matter doing a Product Hunt launch or me emailing, my newsletter following if I'm pitching, I don't know, like a product for doctors. Right? It's not where they hang out. So there's no point doing that. Now, I'm deliberately trying to leverage an existing distribution channels that I have with the products I'm building. I am not, for example, building a product for medical professionals because I don't know any medical professionals. I don't have a following with medical professionals. I don't have any trust with medical professionals. I've deliberately, you'll see me repeatedly focus on these 3 channels. Not always, I think I'd like to branch out, but generally I'm just going to try to not put more work on my plate, which is distribution. Huge thing. Right? How do we get in front of the right people? So there's 3 specific things that I'm doing here, 3 activities as it comes to launch. LinkedIn, I'm doing 5 posts. I've done this for both the products I've launched. It went very well for the last one. The current one, we'll see. I only launched 4 hours ago. So LinkedIn, essentially 5 posts. On the Friday before launch, I will basically prepare the audience. mentally to be like, be aware of this thing coming next week. Be aware of this launch coming. I'm going to share screenshots as well in a second. Launch -3, so that's 3 days before launch. I will do a 3 days to launch post on LinkedIn again, building a bit of awareness, hopefully some excitement if it's relevant for people on LinkedIn. 1 day to launch, so the day before. And then on the morning, I will post at 8:01 a.m., right, a proper launch post, value proposition, pitching the product, and a link to the website. Why at 8:01? Catch people just before the workday, but secondly, product hunt. Product hunt tends to reward products that are launched at 0001 Pacific time. That is 8:01 a.m. UK. So I'm trying to be, as they refresh the day, right? So product hunt, you basically have featured products per day. You're catching that early wave there. And second thing I'll do is at 3 p.m., technically 3:01, I will post another post on LinkedIn because that's when the US tends to wake up and be online, most active. So product hunt tends to again reward products that get a nice boost there. This is according to a company that specializes in product hunt launches. So that's my sort of 5-post sequence. Here's a screenshot. I just build this in Figma myself and just add the text below so that I can just basically remember when I launch the third product, I can reuse this basically template, right, for launch. So I've got it all in there. You can grab this from the slides, take a screenshot if you want, whatever you want to do. Second, product hunt. What is the launch sequence? Ideally, we should be really active the week before launch. That's commenting, that's voting. I just don't have the time or interest in doing that. And it might come to bite me in the ass, but that's the way to sort of start building a bit of trust and connection with people. 1 day before, I literally did this at 3 p.m. yesterday. Create the listing. So that is title, description of the product, images, and demo. I did this extremely quickly. Like the demo, I did a second time, 2 recordings, 3 minutes each, just did the second one. That's the real thing. Screenshots, I again used a template I've got on Figma, but created the visuals myself, 20 minutes or so maximum. So the whole thing, honestly, about half an hour, and taking some of the copy from the landing page. So I'm creating the listing I'm doing it just before because I'm moving quickly, right? The product, like there were significant changes from yesterday morning to this morning. So I want to just do that last minute. I say last minute, just when I sort of know what the product really looks like. Launch, 8:01. So I'll time that 8:01 UK time, 0001 Pacific time. And then 3:01, I'm trying again, reach out to people, get a little bit of more interest and more votes coming in just to hopefully boost it. This worked really well with Smart Updates. Smart Updates ended up getting featured, came 14th product of the day, which is great for no budget and not putting too much effort into it. Haven't got featured so far today. I'm hoping we will, just again to get eyes on. Right, product hunt doesn't matter. Like no one cares if you have a product of the day, but it's about getting more eyes on, getting more of your audience to your product to discover it. So here's the product hunt page. And then final thing is the newsletter. Like I've got, I think 3,800 on that, 33% average open rate. So pretty good, pretty engaged. Friday, I'll warm up the audience. So if you're on that newsletter, Friday, you would have got that email where I'm basically saying, hey, I'm launching next week. Here's the value prop. And then this morning is the direct pitch. So it's, here's the offer. Go CTA, go to the website. Okay. To get just go sign up to the newsletter rather than me adding screenshots, just to sort of see my process. That's really the best way to follow this journey. So productmba.substack.com. And that's it. So key principle here is just, where does your niche hang out? That's where you need to be, right? It doesn't make sense to be on Product Hunt if they're not on Product Hunt. It doesn't make sense to be on LinkedIn. Sorry, post on LinkedIn if they are not on LinkedIn. But also, we want to try to be aware distribution is a massive challenge. Great product, no distribution equals failure. So you want to try to leverage like any distribution channels you already have, right? Any networks you already have access to. Now, where are we at with IdeaForge? Has IdeaForge succeeded or failed? It's hard at this point. What are the stats? So in terms of Let's look at where we're at with product hunt. It's not looking that promising. So only 13 votes on Ideaforge. Is that because it got buried, hasn't got featured? Thursday's a notoriously busy day. It might be. The key stats I'm looking at, though, are not vanity metrics like product hunt ranking. It's really like, are people actually paying for this thing? My goal specifically with these products is to hit $0.5 per unique web visitor. So $500 within 30 days. I don't have the web visitor metrics yet because it only launched 4 hours ago. But there's no sales so far. So we're not seeing revenue, which is, it was always going to be a risk with this kind of idea because it's sort of like it's a nice to have, like why pay for this when you can use note-taking app. But the promising thing that I'm seeing is I'm using this, right? I see genuine value from this. And I've had a look and there are 4 users so far actually using like 9 or more of the features within it. So it shows there's something there. Now, is that going to be a one-off? That's what I'm going to be looking at now. Do we see retention? Do we see these people come back? Do we see some people convert to the paid version? Because there is a free version in this case, right, with limited functionality. So I'm going to give this more time, give this 3-4 days to see what we could do as a next step. Likely a failure because it's not getting, I'm always looking for signs of product market fit. You want to be able to launch and see, wow, there's real interest. There's some sharing. There are people reaching out because they're frustrated about a bug, right? Because they really want to use it in some ways. So not seeing those sort of signs of product market fit, but it's very early on. But, my view generally is if you don't see that early, then you're probably not going to see it. However, Simon and I, as I said, there's potential here. We're seeing potential. We saw really good potential with the user interviews that were done this week. So we may do another iteration with this product over the next month, or at least Simon sort of doing some work about maybe looking at positioning. Like, is it about targeting innovation studios versus startup founders, for example, because they have more money? These kind of questions. But also being aware that because it's something that I'm interested in and really enjoying using does not necessarily mean that other people will, and does not necessarily mean that other people will be willing to pay for it, more importantly. So sort of watch this space. I'll share an update, in fact, I think next Friday, about what's going to happen with Ideaforge moving forward. Final thing before we jump into Q&A. So I'm going to share the lessons so these are the lessons I wrote down from Smart Updates. So that was the first startup. I felt that I went too broad on the niche and too broad on the problem. So helping people with product updates to share with stakeholders. Secondly, I sort of just jumped into building it because it was the first one. I was like, I just want to get some reps. I want to get more comfortable with Bubble. So wasn't so worried about the outcome, but need to obviously pick the right opportunity in future. Don't just jump straight into building, be a bit more disciplined. Just something I teach and talk about and understand the value of, but it's fun. You get into the process, you start building and it's just fun, but starting to really remember, the goal here ultimately is to build a successful business. So start with Figma to move quickly and map out the solution before building, actually go and validate an MVO, right? So put the offer in front of people, see whether there's potential before even thinking of a solution. I wanted to test out this process that I'm essentially doing now, which is 2-week discovery, 1-week build, 1-week launch. I've essentially done that with feasibility and discovery mixed in week 2. Yes, load up future ideas. So start doing discovery on other ideas quite early on. And with Bubble, just really be quite strict with myself, like actually project manage myself rather than just jump into building whatever that comes to mind every day. And a few carry over. So when I'm looking at lessons from Ideaforge, right, the last month, first one, I still need to be more niche and focus on a small problem. Right, I thought I was quite niche in this case. I don't think it was. Is it? I'm going, hey, startup founders or aspiring startup founder. That's pretty broad. Or how is it about finding maybe aspiring startup founders who have just joined an incubator, for example, that kind of thing. Secondly, picking the opportunity very carefully. I did in this case, but I think I may even do 3 weeks just on discovery to really, really try and find the right problem. Because if I find the right problem, then business building becomes relatively easy. It's something I learned with Pro MBA, just in terms of getting the timing right and the right kind of offer in the right place at the right time. You just ride this wave, and life is a hell of a lot easier building that business. So that brings me to point 3, unstructured timeline. I think I'm trying to distill business down to like a process, a copy and paste process. And I think with the 3rd iteration, I'm going to force myself to not do or build anything for 3 weeks. I'm not sure how that's going to go, because I naturally like just working, like feeling busy. So I'm really going to force myself to be quite unstructured in this case, do a bit of discovery calls, bit of research, right, back and forth with ChatGPT, ideation, reading, these kind of things, like going surfing, so I can sort of step out a little bit. Good example, I had that thought of doing this idea when I was just walking the dog this morning with no headphones. 4, I'm definitely overbuilding because it's fun. I'm going to force myself not to build until the week before launch. And again, really, really push that discovery, and also only focus on one feature to not over-engineer. And final learning, something I was aware of, but just to remember, it is hard to make money from people. B2C. Companies pay for things, people pay for things in certain categories, but it's pretty hard to introduce a paid product in a free category. Free category being, how do people organize their startup ideas? Currently, it's through note-taking, it's through Google Sheets. Those are free products in most cases. Okay, so just always remembering that as a lesson and trying to work out, it's not about making millions, but ultimately these ideas need to be profitable. So really trying to focus on not necessarily always B2B, but let's say a category where people spend money on, travel, for example. That's it. Let's jump into Q&A. Also, let me know if that was useful. I've got no idea. It's literally just a stream of thought from what I've been doing the last month. We'll jump into Q&A and see if you've got any questions. So feel free to post on the LinkedIn chat.